Psychic Science 101, mediumship, forensic studies, and tarot. So that's what I do.
Yay. Well, we're happy to have you, Britney. I can't wait to hear all your knowledge and all those things and what questions will come up for that. So thank you. Yep. All right, Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Mayo. I am in the West Coast, as Britney mentioned. I'm in Southern California, in Orange County. Forgive me, I'm going to be clearing my throat throughout. I'm dealing with a bronchial sort of thing at the moment. So just to give you a heads up, because that's what I have to tell every class that I teach now. I'm like, sorry, you're going to hear me clearing my throat. So I'll try to mute myself. And then, you know what's probably also going to happen? I'm probably going to mute myself and keep talking. And so just let me know, Michael, you're muted, and then we'll be good. So anyway, I've been in my development for my spiritual awareness, mediumship, psychism since I was 18. I'm 33 now. So it's been a while. And I have studied largely in the UK. So in Scotland with Gordon Smith, and in what am I trying to say? In England as well, at the Arthur Findlay College with Eileen Davies, but I've also worked with her in other places. And so, and then, so I've done demonstrations, workshops, development here in the UK, in Europe, in Australia. So I've kind of been all over the place. And I've worked with James Van Praagh. I've demonstrated with Gordon Smith. I've demonstrated with, who else did I do that with? I have to think. Several, AJ Barrera, if you guys know him. So I have several people that I've, got to work with, which is really, really exciting and fun. I just got off the phone with Eileen. I was just speaking with Eileen, one of Uma's teachers as well.
I love her.
I know, she's the best. So my whole jam with mediumship is to be grounded in it, like be grounded in what we understand, what we know, and being evidence-based. I'm not a big airy fairy person. So as everyone, shares their perspectives today, just take what you like, throw away what you don't. And, we may agree on everything. We may agree on nothing. I have no idea. But it's good to just have different perspectives. And mine really just tries to come from a place of the spirit world is a real tangible thing that we can experience and know. And whatever I'm going to do, it's going to help you to kind of know that this is a real thing. And the things that I've learned over the years, that is the most effective way to become aware of that. And so that it's not this guessing game. It's not this thing of like, oh, I think I'm getting this, but rather making it a real tangible thing that, the way I often talk about it is like, you're just a little nerve ending and then you have an experience and that's what you talk about. And try to just keep spirituality simple, because I think we as humans, we like to overcomplicate things, make things all these kinds of woo-woo stuff. And that's not me. So I'm sure we'll get all kinds of different perspectives tonight. So I'm excited to explore and see, what we do together. So thank you.
That's awesome. And, even though we all have like different working backgrounds, the funny thing is this is my third time doing it. We all tend to agree a lot on the same things. So, and I think it's because of our training, because, remember, I met you guys in classes. So we're all like learning the same things, and it's just great. So thank you so much, Michael. I mean, Michael is just hitting it out the ballpark, working, like, that's my dream, to work with James Van Praagh and Eileen Davies, and like actually platform next to them is like my dream. So, and Gordon Smith, oh my God, Gordon Smith. Yeah. So that's like, I look up to you. I'm kind of like, I can't wait.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, you know what, girl, we'll hook it up. We'll all have a little, thing.
Okay? And we're bringing Britney too, because she's just fun to drink with. So.
Britney, come.
With medium? Can that be a thing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I'm really big on spreading the goodness. I mean, everyone, we should all be supporting each other. What I cannot stand is when mediums get all nitpicky and weird about each other and like competitive. And I'm like, that's just not how that works. Like the core is harmony. The core is love. The core is all of that. Like, let's be an example of that. Let's support each other, build each other. So
that's one thing I have noticed in being in this industry is how supportive we are as a whole. And it really surprised me when I went to some of our classes that, you know, you would think that there would be people that were catty or aggressive, you know, wanting to be the star of the class, wanting to, you know, take something but not give anything back. And that's not what I saw at all. And I felt like it was totally different than any other industry because we do want to spread the light. It's like something within us that we just feel we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So true. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because like I said, this is free. This is just, and you know, the funny thing is every single person, like Jen's on the chat. I saw Jen come in. Jen's going to be our next speaker in 2 weeks. And it's such a great community because I just reach out to my friends and say, hey, I'm doing this. Would you like to do? I've not had one person say no. You guys have all been great with your time. And, you know, like Britney had to get a babysitter to be here tonight, you know, and I'm just like, this is so cool. Like you guys are really upstanding. And I hope wherever you guys are watching from in the world that you do seek these guys out, you know, as your mentors and your teachers and follow up with them, because that's what you want in a teacher and a mentor. So I'm just going to give my intro really quick and then we're going to jump to questions. By the way, for some of you that are writing the questions, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're in chat, just please remember to put like the question to someone, say like, Michael, this is my question, or Brittany, so we can know. If not, I'll just start pushing it towards them or myself or whatever. So my name is Uma. I've been a practicing psychic and a medium. I like the distinction that Brittany said earlier, for 11 years. I started as a massage therapist, and Michael and I were talking about that because he started as a massage therapist. And I thought, how cool is that? And I think some of you on this chat are probably Reiki healers. And I want to tell you that it started for me and probably for Michael with touch. So while I was touching my clients, it's just like this stream of information just started coming through very naturally. And then when I was like reaching a lot of accuracy with that, I said, okay, I need training now because I have no idea what I'm doing. And if I'm going to like do this, I need to have some sort of integrity about this work and know what I'm doing. So that's when I started seeking out the teachers. And I'll tell you what, even though I'm a professional medium and I do platform and I do readings and stuff like that, I have under my belt over 10,000 readings within the 11 years I've worked. Here's what I'll tell you. I'm still in class. I still train with Eileen Davies and Colin Bates and Janet No Havoc and Mavis Patilla, because it's a lifestyle. You know, you can get better. You can keep getting better. You can keep fine tuning and getting, you know, even more things out of it. So for those of you that are watching and in development, I hope you don't have a mindset of, I'll just take this class and then I'll be done, or I'll just do a year and then I'll be done. Like it's really just a lifetime commitment. If you have that heart. Okay. So I think we have some questions coming in. Rachel, are you watching Facebook for me? Yeah. Okay, good. Because Rachel, by the way, everyone say hi to Rachel. She is assisting me tonight. She is one of my apprentices. I have 3 a year. Awesome. So let's see. Corey asked, Brittany, what would you be if you just feel or know things are going to happen before they do and you can feel spirit?
Well, so that's 2 different things, but essentially that to me would be a psychic and a medium. I mean, you know, we use different platforms. You know, there's clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairgestient. There's different ways that we do this, and that knowing things before they happen is clairsentience, claircognizance, clairvoyance. I mean, it's all of that wrapped into one. And so premonitions were one of my first. Those were one of my first signs. I don't know about you guys, but those are one of the first things where I was like, oh, okay. So premonitions, that would make you psychic, and being able to sense or feel spirit would make you mediumistic. So that's what you are. If you can do that and you know what you're feeling, that's clearly your psychic medium. I wanted to really quickly, not to get off topic or leave what you're saying, and we'll come right back to it, but you mentioned being a massage therapist, both of you. I was a hairstylist. I owned a salon. And so I would touch their heads, their hair. I would be all up in their business, and I'd be like, oh my God, this girl's having an affair. Or, I mean, it was stuff that I, you know, shouldn't be knowing. And then within 20 minutes, they're spilling their guts, and everything that I was picking up, has been confirmed. So that's so funny to me. I did not know that both of you did that, and we kind of all developed through touch. But so anyways, back to your question, definitely, I would say psychic medium. Wouldn't you guys both say psychic and medium?
Oh, okay. To Michael. Yeah.
Sure. So I think it just depends a little bit more. I mean, yeah, I think, first of all, I think everyone has something, because it's all just going to depend on the varying levels of how deep it is within us. So some people it's going to take a lot longer to develop. Some people it's just a little bit closer to the surface. And so, but either way, we all require development. And I think that's super important. As Uma was saying before, you know, she still sits in development. I still sit in development. We all still sit. As far as, I think that intuition and knowing things before they happen and premonition is a very natural thing. I think that is natural. I also think mediumship is a very natural thing. It's just, if you are in a state where you are relaxed, you are open, you are not overly focused on anything, it's very easy for our intuition to act naturally. Now, if you wanted to learn to use that on command, then you would need to be moving into development, because that's the unnatural part. The unnatural part is us saying, okay, give me this reading now. But actually your intuition and your mediumistic awareness is a natural part of you being when it happens organically. So if you're interested and you're wanting to develop to use that in some way for the benefit of others, I would definitely say go for it. And those experiences will say that there is a potential, and now it's your job to then go develop it.
Excellent.
Yeah, definitely sitting in circles and doing your work is, because that there was a follow-up question with Corey saying, how do I learn to develop it more? I get all of those, but don't know how to use it. And guys, you would agree with me, right? It's practice. It's a lot of practice and learning and honing your skill.
Yeah, I would say practice, and then also sitting in the stillness. I think sitting in the power is one of the most vital and important things that a medium should understand and develop, because I often find in the United States it's not taught. And so sitting in the power, just out of curiosity, those of you listening who we can see, raise your hand if you know what that means.
My students better raise your hands.
Your students are raising their hand. I'm proud of your students. People turning on their cameras being like, I got this one.
My students better raise their hand, because I'll beat them. I'll beat them with a stick.
I love that. So yeah, I think that's one of the most key and important things is understanding the power. The power informs everything within mediumship. So if you're not sure what that is, or you want to understand that more, you know, reach out to obviously Uma's students and Uma and
you guys know about sitting in the power.
Michael, can you tell them the difference between sitting in the power and meditation?
Absolutely, yeah. So meditation is something that we can do for ourselves. That's something that we can do really for our own sort of awareness and sensitivity. And, you know, you can meditate on concepts, compassion, love, ideals, that sort of thing. You can meditate for more of a psychological benefit, like with mindfulness and that sort of thing. That's different than sitting in the power, although it may take a similar sort of experience because you're quieting, you're stilling your mind, etc. Sitting in the power is more about quieting and stilling the mind, becoming aware of your own power and energy, and expanding that so that you can then begin to feel what your power and energy is like, as well as offering to the spirit world, this is your time to develop me. I am a huge believer that our development comes from, it's the spirit world that develops us. What we need to do is offer the opportunity for them to develop us. And that's that time of sitting in the power. You're sitting in that love, you're sitting in that closeness. And it's the way I always imagine it is like, it's the spirit world's time to get their little clipboard out and their little pen. And they're like, okay, we need to adjust this here. We need to adjust this here, so we can start opening up your awareness. So for me personally, I think practicing is good because it tells you where you're at, but true development happens in the stillness and the quiet, and mastering your ability to manage your mind and your awareness. So
I love that. And I got to tell you, as a medium, sitting in the power is one of my favorite things to do. You know, when you go to Archer Finley College, they spend the first like 30 minutes of every day, right? Where we just all sit in the sanctuary, and I love it. It gets so still and so quiet, and
Absolutely.
just, you can feel the presence of spirit, and it really does fine tune you. Michael, you actually have a question from Gina. She says, you mentioned that you're 33. I'm also 33 and wondering if you have any insight astrologically speaking into the first Saturn returns. That's true, because you guys just went through your first Saturn returns.
My Saturn return was actually not bad. My Saturn return was awesome.
Yeah.
Some people have really, really poor Saturn returns where like they get a divorce, they, you know, they all these things, like they lose their job, they lose their house, they have all these kinds of, you know, groundbreaking sort of things. And that's very, very common for a lot of people. So it happens somewhere around 29. Usually what Saturn is asking of you is, and I use that figuratively, obviously, because Saturn is not asking you anything, but what it is asking you is what have you built that is quality? So that first 29 years of your life, what have you built that is lasting? What have you built with patience, time, dedication, that sort of thing? If you rushed into a marriage, it's probably going to end right there at the end. If you rushed into kids, it's going to, you're going to have that like midlife crisis sort of, or early life crisis of like, I don't know, is this what I wanted to do? Because so many of us live for the standards that society puts on us. And usually right around that Saturn return, we realize, oh crap, we didn't make the right decisions as we moved along, and that's when you see a lot of these changes and things happen. Then you have another one around like 58, 59, I believe it is, something like
59,
that.
61, yeah.
Yeah, and in that one, it tends to be less dramatic because you've already had one, so hopefully you've kind of sorted yourself a bit. Plus, Saturn really likes time and dedication and commitment and that sort of thing. So essentially, if you're going through your Saturn return and it is hard and it is challenging, go with it, relax into it. The beautiful thing astrology teaches you is that there's seasons for people, and there are seasons where you can't help it. It's going to be, pardon my French, a shit sandwich, and you just kind of have to go with it, and you'll get through it. And that's the nice thing, because everything is an ebb and flow. Everything has its high points, its low points, and we just have to learn to move with it in that journey. And it'll be okay. Take the lessons that you can, because it's going to help you later.
Speaking of seasons, there is a thing for mediumship development and psychic development that you actually go through seasons as well, right? So there's times where you can just be hitting 0 for 0. And it's important. It's an important part of your development. So I'm going to ask both you and Britney, Michael and Britney, what do you guys, when you hit that season where it feels like almost like you're up leveling to the next level. And while you're doing that, you're just like, nothing's coming through. You're just like blocked. What do you guys do?
I'll let you go first, Michael.
Sure. I was just about to say the same thing to you. I was gonna be like, Britney, you can go. Yeah, we're just linked. We're both really polite, apparently.
Yeah.
I would say for me, that definitely happens 100%. I mean, that's such a good thing. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it because people will start to get that experience of like, I'm not getting anything anymore, et cetera, et cetera. The first thing I would do is look at what have been my practices. Have I been sitting regularly? Have I been doing the things that I know to consistently stay in that space where my mental awareness is flexible? The other thing I would say is being aware of, oh, it's leaving me. Sorry, it just left. I'm gonna go on to something else before I go to that one again. But it is. I think it's very much about you knowing if there's other stressors in your life, where there are other things happening that's also adding to this. But also, there's just some times where I feel you're meant to step away for a moment. I feel like you're meant to take a break, because it's about integration of the things that you have learned. And then what will happen is when it does come back around and you're really feeling that, it'll just be like, and you're just like, oh my gosh, city streets and like names and places I've never been and all that sort of thing. So like it up levels, like Uma was saying. So I would say in those moments, it's just about maintaining your practices and maintaining what you do, but also acceptance. This is not a really great time for me right now, and I'm just gonna have to get through that and then go forward.
Beautiful.
I am so glad that you brought that up, because the whole, we go through seasons thing. I take from what Janet Nohavik always says, and she's like, it's a cocktail. Spirit's got to be on, your client's got to be on, and you've got to be on. And if all three of you are not flowing, if one is kind of sticking in the background, it's going to be hard. Now that's a case by case basis. And when we talk about just seasons, I think, seasons like ebb and flow of I'm on a high, I couldn't get anything from this client. I think of a lot of it comes back to your physical experience, and everybody's physical experience on earth is different. I'm a single mom of 2 small children. And so when I have appointments like that, back to back, week on end, I have to stop living so, you know, in the spirit world and check my physical experiences. I sometimes have a hard time, you know, living in, I don't know how this is going to come out wrong, but living in the physical world.
Yeah.
You know?
I understand what you're saying, because I'm a single mom to 2 boys too, so I get it. Yeah.
Things get to flowing so good and life is so good, and so I'm just writing this high frequency, and then all of a sudden, bam, you know, just today my roof's leaking, my air quit working, you know, I've got all these human problems that I have to deal with, and I'm like, no, hey, you guys are supposed to have my back. And then you've got to remember, you know, so check your physical experiences, which is kind of a play on what Michael was saying. You know, see what you've done, what's changed. I think for a lot of us, it is what's going on around us. And for some of us, it's kind of Spirit's way of saying, hey, you think you're getting too good? We need to check you before you wreck yourself. Like, seriously, you know, like if I end up having a bad show or, you know, a string of bad appointments, I will literally sit there and say, Spirit, how can I serve you? What have I done wrong? And every single time they always tell me, listen. Like,
with the finger too? With the finger?
Listen, and I, you know, I'm a Gemini, so I like run at full speed constantly 24/7, and you know, slowing down and taking a class or two here and there, and just like you said, level up. It's okay. It's time to level up, which is odd because you would think you would go into this, you would get better if you were supposed to level up, which essentially you are, but
like a dead stop. I remember I had one tutor. I'm no longer with that tutor anymore, but it was private tutoring. They were in the UK, and I hit that block. And this was really bad because this was before my very first big demonstration, where I had to do a demonstration on Sunday in front of 100 people. And it was my first big demonstration. And I was doing my tutoring with him on Wednesday, and I hit that block. And I had to read him, and nothing was coming. And you know what they said to me? They said, I don't think mediumship is for you. Could you imagine what I had to go through? I lost it. I was trying so hard not to cry. I cried like a big baby. And they continued. They just continued, just like, yeah, this is not for you, and all this stuff. So I hung up, and I was so like deterred that I was ready to cancel, you know, the thing on Sunday. Thank God I have a partner who's supportive, because he was like, you get your ass on that stage and you're gonna be fine. And it was one of the best performances of my life. I brought through someone's dad. It was a man, it was a gay couple, and the dad died before he married his partner. And I didn't know any of this, of course. And the dad really wanted to say he approved and he wished them well. And they were both crying. The whole room was crying. It was amazing. But could you imagine, like, if I had just stopped, you know? So I did want to bring it up, because for those of you that are developing, you're going to have some bad days. And the most important thing is to be with a very supportive group. I'll tell you right now, I love doing platform in trios, or like me and someone else, because when you do a platform, you can, and if you have trust with that people, you can say, I'm having a really hard day today. You know, like my refrigerator stopped working and we had repair people through here and all this sort of stuff, and I'm tired. Can y'all like take the bulk of it? Because I do platform here with Rob and Carlos. Rob, my partner, and Carlos, our friend. And invariably any night, one of us will come and say, can you guys kind of, you know, do a little bit more? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. Do you guys like working in group, or you prefer solo?
I have actually never done it, and I want to so bad, which is something that you and I talked about. I'm like, bring me out there. You don't have to pay me. I don't want the ticket money. You keep it. I just want to have the experience of working with a medium that I trust.
Absolutely. And so, well, we can do online now. We can do we can just book online, all three of us. It's so fun because there's just like people supporting you. And, you know, one of the things I used to ask like people like Eileen Davies, you know, about platform, you know, how they sit on the stage while the other, and I'm like,
oh yeah.
What do you guys think about? Are you thinking about your dinner? Like, but what do you think about, you know? And the teachers told me, no, we're sending power. We're sending power to the person that's presenting. I'm like, oh, that was so profound to me. It's such community. So then we started doing it, me, Rob, and Carlos, when one of us, we're not like tapped out mentally. We're like sending our power to them, and then we're all shining together. It's fun.
I love that.
Yeah. We've just been chatting. Let's see if there's any questions. Gina wanted to thank you, Michael, and say her return has been good so far. other than some anxiety hurdles due to her awakening, she's hoping the cusp is to a magnificent shift. They tend to be, right? Like good shifts.
Yeah, and those anxiety things are part of it, and not even necessarily just your awakening, but just like in life we have that, and as you develop sensitivity, it can also impact your that side of things as well, because things can become overwhelming, etc., etc. So one of the things I wanted to mention too is like the importance of your psychological health as well. So like being mindful and aware of your well-being. Like I know that a lot of people believe that, I don't know, maybe a lot of people don't, I don't know, but I've heard this, I'm spiritual, I'm a medium, and therefore I'm developing all aspects of me. And the reality is one can be an incredible medium, but not have addressed their own personal healing, their own personal psychological well-being, and that sort of thing. So these two things should go hand in hand. And with all of the things that have been happening in the last few months, like that's really highlighted, and really have had an opportunity to really look at kind of my own things and uncovering and digging things up. And my own therapist is having a field day with all the things, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's super important for us to really work on ourselves as well as people. Just because you have a spiritual connection doesn't necessarily mean that's going to help the human side of you, and that's your brain, that's your mind.
I'm really glad you brought that up. That's one of my platforms I stand on, is there's a link between mental health and mediumship. Because, and I don't know, I'm doing my own research, and I'm working with some colleges here to like test me and do the brain scan and all that, because I have a feeling that people who are drawn to psychic and mediumship tend to have emotional imbalances, if you will. When I was younger, they wanted to diagnose me as bipolar. And I knew in my heart as a 19-year-old, I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. I just have to figure out what is right about me. And then and I'm just like, I'm really good at what I do. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because as a mentor, when I'm like checking people out for my mentorship programs, the first thing I look at is their mental health. And if they are having just a lot going on and it's uncontrollable, I tend to not to want to work with them, because I know what this can do to us. I'm pretty sure you guys can know, like it costs you relationships. It can cost you a lot of things. How do you guys deal with the mental health aspect of this? I know Michael said, very good for you for like just being so open and saying you have a therapist, because I do too. Like you have to have people to talk about with these things. What do you do, Britney, about the mental health part of this?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. That is one of the hangups that I have with this. I am, I don't necessarily know that I'd say I'm a very proud individual, but and maybe it just goes back to being a Gemini, which I probably put too much stock in astrology. Am I allowed to say that?
No, I'm Gemini moon, so I'm totally getting you.
Yes. So it's really something that my mind doesn't even really slow down to think about. I have to, like I said again, check myself before I wreck myself. It's moments like this where we're talking, where I make that mental note of, oh my God, I should do an EFT session, or I should probably check this or check that out. I right now have been focusing more on my physical health. Mental health has always been a strong point for me, thank goodness. But for me, it was the exact opposite. Physically, I was not, I had a lot of issues, blood issues, and just, all kinds of things that I wasn't even aware of that I had. And so recently I lost about 60 pounds, and I really feel like doing that, keeping my, my instrument, which is my body, healthy, has changed everything for me. And so it goes hand in hand with mental health. I'm kind of on the opposite side of that. I'm on the physical health, and I wasn't paying attention to that. But for my mental health, having two small children, I'm kind of like, I'm just going to have to get back to that in like 10 years.
I'll tell you, for me, it was really hard coming into the psychic mediumship, because what I know, and this is just me self-diagnosing myself, so please guys, don't think I'm like making this for everybody. I noticed that if I did like a session, like a platform, I would be on a high, and then if I don't come down properly from that high after, I could become very like, just want to fight. And usually it's with Rob, I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you sounding so loud on the phone? He's like, I'm breathing. I'm just breathing. Do you want me to stop breathing? And I'm like, yeah, could you just for a moment, Just stop breathing. Give me that courtesy. And he's like, what is wrong with you? And then guess what? He started doing demonstrations and then feeling that rush and that high afterwards when you're like calming back down and settling back in. And we had to be really careful because, you know, you can kind of be like really, what's the word? Yeah, yeah, really like that. Yeah.
I just had this conversation today. I am, for the first time, you know, dating. And so kind of bringing someone who doesn't do what I do into my world has been interesting. And so we're empaths, right? So we're super, super sensitive. Every single thing we're sensitive to. And then you add being a woman onto it. And I'm just like, God, thank you for putting up with us.
Michael, do you have anything to weigh in about mental health with mediumship?
Yeah, absolutely. I made a little note because this is something I've looked into a lot, and I know that there is some evidence to support it. What I have seen, and also what just personally, and I believe that there are studies, I don't know if it's the Windbridge Institute that did that, which is an amazing institute that does studies on mediums and psychics and things. But with trauma, the correlation between childhood trauma and mediumship, and oftentimes what that does is because whether you had the trauma or your parent had the trauma, which I find very interesting, that your sensitivity is heightened. So if you think about it this way, if you had some sort of, and these can vary obviously because what is traumatic to one person may not be to another, but if you have the perception, this is my psych degree coming in, if you have the perception of being, you know, mistreated, et cetera, it still has the same physiological response. So personally for me, you know, I had a very, you know, explosive, reactive sort of childhood. And what I have also heard from many people who have done mediumship or who have worked in this, they too also experience this at a very young age. And what that does is it causes you to have to feel into the atmosphere around you regularly to be able to discern and determine, is this a safe space? What am I going to get from this other person, my parent or my friend or my husband or whoever? And so you're constantly feeling out into the ether essentially. And I think that's what makes you become a really, you know, it can lead to your mediumistic awareness because you're learning to become perceptive using other senses than just the things that you're seeing. Does that make sense? And so there is evidence to support these two things together. So that's why I also say, even more so, folks, if you're doing the mediumship stuff, work on your mental health because you're most likely more than not gonna have to work on that. So
it really is like a double hitter with the mental and the physical health. Because I, like Britney, I gained 50 pounds because why? This is very sedentary, right? We just sit here and we do a reading and then we go eat. And then we sit here and we do a reading and then we go eat. So I gained, and I'm working, actually, it was Britney that started motivating me to start working out. Cause I was like, honestly, Britney, because people were telling me, oh, you're a medium now. This is how you're going to be. I'm like, wait, what? Why? And all these excuses came up. Like you have to ground the earth.
Yeah.
The energy has to ground. And I'm like, what? And then I saw Britney do it. And I'm like, wait a minute. She's a great medium. So she did it. I could do it. So I'm on my treadmill every day.
It changed my readings. It literally took them from like, I don't know, I would say a 5 or 6 to a 10.
Wow.
And not every time, like I have my seasons, like, you know, we talked about, but it really changed. But you got to think, not carrying around that extra weight. Same thing with your mental health, not carrying around that. EFT helped me tremendously drop some emotional weight. And after I worked through that, so, you know, on the mental health part of this, after I worked through that, it was almost like the weight came off like butter. And so, yeah, that plays right into talking about how important mental health is. Because it really,
well, I just wanted to say real quick, Michael, because somebody on Facebook said that EMDR therapy helps her with her own trauma. With your psychology background, could you explain what EMDR is just really quickly?
Yes. I believe that is because now I'm like, wait, shit.
It's kind of it's the
eye movement thing, yeah. And so what that is doing is it's helping you to rewire. Essentially, you're essentially creating. In some ways, they have found that by that rapid eye movement sort of thing, that it actually kind of almost like erases or overrides that the experience of that whatever that trauma is or whatever it is. So it's like it's essentially, you can think of it as sort of like you're erasing it or you're lessening the intensity of it through the activity of just switching the eyes. I remember someone when I was, I don't know if I was listening to a podcast or something like that, but they were talking about how in a traumatic moment, we often are looking and darting and our eyes are like going back and forth, and we're like basically imprinting this experience on ourselves because we're looking for the danger. So this is sort of like doing the same experience, but in a safe environment, re-experiencing it, and creating essentially a lessened experience of that. So yeah, that's what I know of it. I'm definitely no expert. But.
Yeah, but I think that pretty much hits it on the head, because I had a therapist do it to me and it worked. It really did.
But one thing I just wanted to add is like,
yes.
I think just from that little section of what we were talking about, it just shows you that it's mental, physical, and spiritual that all need to be in line. We need to take care of all of them. And in this world, we tend to, ignore some of them, right? And I find that anytime that I, just like you were saying, Brittany, anytime I start working on my physical health, that always improves my mental health, and that improves my spiritual awareness, and that, so they all are connected. These aren't isolated parts of yourself.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Any questions? And you guys, by the way, those of you that are watching on Zoom, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. We're not doing readings tonight. I know some people are writing in for questions for readings. This is a Q&A, guys. So if you have any questions for the mediums, that's okay. So while people are thinking of questions to ask you guys, I want to ask you two, what is your favorite memorable reading? I know you guys have done like hundreds of thousands like I've done as well, but there's few, right, that just stand out to you. And what's like one of your favorite memories of doing a reading that you can share with us?
I almost don't want to go after you, Michael. So
Why?
I think I'm going to go first.
Yeah, because this is going to blow us out the water.
Blow it out of the water, yeah.
Really not, I promise. It's nothing, but go for it.
Yeah, so thousands of readings is right over the last, X amount of years. And so it's kind of really hard for me to think of one of my favorites. But
yeah.
First one that comes to mind is I was actually doing my first ever platform. It was in a teeny town in Missouri, La Plata. And I went there and was bringing through a woman's boyfriend who had just passed, a young lady's boyfriend. And they had a child together almost she had the child right before he passed, I think. I can't remember. It was one or the other, either, before or after she had the child. And he came through stating that he watches his child grow up and, brought in all of his favorite foods and this and that. And then he showed me the number 28. And I don't know why, but I am huge into numbers.
Yeah.
It's just a quick, easy way to get me some hardcore evidence. And so he kept repeating the number 28 over and over again, and it wasn't hitting on anything for them. And I think this is really, really important to tell you that when we get this evidence, we don't care how stupid or silly we look up there. If you're going to sit there and keep saying no, we're going to keep giving you the information, and we're going to say, hey, put it in your back pocket and walk away with it. And that's kind of where it went to. And that was hard for me because that was my very first event. And, all these people in there are hearing them say no over and over again to this piece of evidence. And, I was frustrated. Well, after the reading was over, they left to go pick up her and her mother left to go pick up her son, and he had spilt something on his shirt, and they had changed him into a shirt that had the number 28 on it.
Oh.
And so because they didn't know that the boy was wearing the 28 shirt, and they went to pick him up and they're like, oh my God, that's the 28. And so that's probably one of my favorites, just because it just goes to show you that, I think John Edward calls it psychic amnesia, where you sit there and you're like, I have no idea what this is saying. And we just have to stick to it and look like crazy people until you privately get a hold of us where nobody else knows that where
all the audience is gone.
So frustrating. But, it is what it is. We do this because because we're called to do it. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorites.
There's probably a certain level of crazy in all of us to want to do this, because to get up there, and the thing is, guys, you can't prepare before you get up on a stage. You can't come like saying, oh, I'm looking at that woman and I know, you have to get up on the stage, face all those people, and then connect in. I want to go before Michael goes, because I think Michael's going to blow it out the water.
Really not. I promise, guys. It's not exciting.
I don't care. I'm going next. No, I'm next. You gave me chills, Brittany. I love stories like that. So mine was, I had an engineer come to me for a reading, and he's an engineer, so he really thinks I'm full of crap anyways. And I'm like, why are you booking me for a reading? So we did bring through his best friend, Bill. And it was really, he actually enjoyed it. He was crying, laughing, because Bill talked about the bars he used to go to, where they live, their work, and just just walking them through their life again. And he really loved it. He was like, oh, wow. He was like crying. And then he said about his red convertible sports car. And that's where my client was like, no, you're wrong. He never, as long as I've known Bill, he's never had a red convertible sports car. And Bill, and again, like you, Brittany, I'm like, I just have to tell you what I'm getting. And he's saying that he loved that car so much. And my client's like, no. And I'm like, all right, it is what it is. So he left, he went home, and this is how amazing spirit is. This is why, guys, I tell you, never limit a limitless power. Eileen Davies loves to say that. Never limit a limitless power. I stuck to my guns about that red convertible. When he went home, Spirit arranged it. I have to say, Spirit arranged it where the nephew of Bill called my client, and they hadn't spoken in years. And he said, for some reason, I just felt the need to call you. And he said, this is amazing. I just saw a medium and she gave everything right, except she got one thing wrong about a red convertible sports car. And he said, oh, Uncle Dominic, that was before your time. He loved that sports car. That just meant the world to him. So yeah, that was one of my favorite stories of all time, to the point where my client, Dominic, passed. But he had written a book about his experiences, and he mentioned the medium who told him about the red sports car, because it was blown away. Because he said, I actually think mediums are full of crap. He's like, I think you guys read people's minds and then just feed them back. So what his friend did was brought through a memory that he would not have known about, but also validated it. Isn't that amazing? Mm-hmm. So never limit a limitless power. Okay, Michael, now take it away.
Oh my God. Well, that's what we call research evidence. So when someone has to go and find the information, and it's beautiful evidence, because it shows us that there isn't, it's not mind reading. If it wasn't known by the sitter, then it's definitely not mind reading. And so I love that. That's a beautiful, you guys give beautiful stories.
That, Michael. Evidence.
Take it. It's actually not even mine. It's just what it's called.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I just learned something new tonight. Research.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I love it.
It's when people just don't remember. But the psychic amnesia thing, that's such a real thing too. But really, when I think about like a favorite, or memorable reading, it's usually there's one in particular that always comes to my mind, and it's only because of how clear it felt. So as a medium, like there's varying levels of clarity until you have that click in from the spirit world. So like Eileen always says, that a message develops, it builds as you engage it, as you move into it, it deepens, it grows, and then that's where all the deep detail is. And this was a sitting I gave to a couple, and their mother had just died. I didn't know that, but I brought through the mom, and she was a chatty Cathy. This lady was just telling me everything. And for me, what I loved about this reading is like, it was so detailed. It was like, literally, I was like, and she's telling me that you have her ashes and that you're planning on making jewelry out of the ashes. So you're turning it into diamonds or something. And she was like, yes. And I'm like, and each one of you are supposed to be receiving it. And they're like, yes, that's right. I'm like, and she's talking about the dogs. And then she's like, and here's the last will and testament. I'm literally just going like point by point by point. And like, for me, I didn't even have to think about it. It was so clear, so like right there, that it was just like boom, 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 boom. And like, to me, that's why that stands out. It's not even so much evidence. It's the fact that it was so clear. It was so obvious. And when it feels like that, where your mind is just in automatic mode. So you're just spitting out the next thing as it comes. And that's ultimately where we want to get to. We always want to be that. It's oftentimes that we'll try to process or look at the information, and that's what messes us up. Those of you who are working mediums or developing mediums, the more that our awareness is in it, our thinking mind trying to process it, the more you're going to run into trouble, because mediumship doesn't come from the mind. Mediumship comes from another sense. It comes from your awareness, your spiritual senses. And so really let go of I always turn these things into teaching moments because I can't help myself.
No, because we're teachers. We're teachers. That's
Yeah,
why.
exactly. Really let go of the need for you to understand how this thing applies. Because that is one of the biggest things that I see with so many students is they want to understand it before they speak about it. And I'm always telling my students, no, say it first and then let the next thing come that may give it context or inform it in some way. Just give your experience as it's happening. Don't try to hang on to it, because that's what happens. And you get what I call psychic constipation, is like you hold on to it for too long and then it just messes everything up. It just
make a story. Or make a story out of it, because like you'll get one thing and then before you can get the other thing, you started running off in that direction with that story.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing I would say too is like we just have to be mindful that our mind doesn't try to fill in the blanks. And like I can't tell you how many times I've given a message where as I'm giving all the evidence, you know, your mind wants to start piecing it together, but you have to be really good and not let your mind do that. So you just keep sticking with the evidence as it comes. And there's so many times where I've given a reading and I thought, in my head, I thought I knew what this story was and what had happened, et cetera, et cetera. And then when they tell me and they give me feedback, I'm like, I was so freaking wrong. I was so wrong. So I'm so glad that I just paid attention to the evidence and they understood it. And
I shut my mouth and I just listened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have some questions coming in now. You guys are firing people up. Okay. One question that was posed to, I guess, either both of you guys, what would you suggest when you first start practicing on people on how to wrap up the ending or meaning of the reading, or why that person came through and not someone else? Basically, how do you close the reading?
Do you want to explain to them CERT, or I know that in England, they do it a little bit differently than we do here in the US, but you know, there's a different level of each reading, right, of the reading. And so you kind of open it up, you give the evidence and blah, blah, blah. Which one do you use, Matthew?
Michael?
Okay. I'll take Matthew. That's cute. Yeah, so the English do very much similar thing. So, you know, you give your message or you give your evidence and then your message essentially. So it's a similar thing. I personally, for training and development purposes, I agree with using a system like that. I think that's a great thing. Just so that you get used to the habit of making sure that the person can understand the information prior to giving a message. Because if you just jump in there and you're like, okay, this is your grandma, and he says this, and there you go. There's no proof that that's her. You just knew that it was the grandma. Like I don't know who the heck that is. It could be anything. You know what I mean? So for me, it's super important to do those things. But yeah, go for it. Yeah, that's what I do.
I think go ahead, Brittany.
I think one of the things that was hardest for me in the beginning was tying it up, because emotions are high. They're paying you for this reading, and so you feel obligated to stay in there as long as you can and try to help this person feel better, right? Basically, you're sometimes when you end the reading, you're making them feel that they've lost connection once again, and so it's very emotional. And so what I do, and I don't know if this is kind of what they're asking or not, but maybe to alleviate some of the awkwardness, is I set a timer on my phone. And, I kind of keep an eye on where I'm at. I don't like to open up new things, real close to the ending. And I always go over my time. If somebody's got a half-hour reading with me, it always becomes an hour. If they've got an hour reading with me, it usually becomes 2 hours. I don't know if you guys do that, but that's me.
No.
I know. I was like, nope.
Nope, not here.
You're going to that time because I got that.
I gotta go. I gotta go. I love you, but I gotta go.
Yeah, so I feel super obligated to give them as much as I can, and that's a downfall that I have, I know. But I do set a timer just so that it kind of alerts them that, hey, your time is up. Anything that I'm continuing to do from this point on is out of the kindness of my heart, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that's maybe what they were asking, but that's how I kind of tie it up.
It definitely is like a full question. I would answer it for me, and I don't know if this is answering it either, because it's kind of like open. For me, it's more in the beginning. The beginning allows for space for the closing, because a lot of times when people come to me for mediumship, they actually don't want mediumship. They actually want a spiritual assessment where they want me to talk to their guides for advice, or they want an intuitive reading about, should I pick this job, or should I be with this guy with tarot cards or whatever. So when people reach out to me and say, I want a mediumship reading, I start by saying, hey, a mediumship reading for me is that you want to connect with evidential messages from your loved ones in spirit. Is that correct? And then they'd be like, yeah, I want to know what messages they have for me. And I'm like, what messages are, like, so we do that back and forth talk. And then once they say, yes, I just want to talk to my loved ones in spirit, then I go into kind of like CERT, but not as like, outlined as CERT. I go into first identifying who the spirit communicator is. And then after I identify, this is your grandmother on your mother's side or twice removed and all of that, then I go into the evidence. And then after the evidence, if there's a message, then I'll bring through the message. If there's not a message, I would just say, that's it. She just wanted to say hello from heaven and she's giving you kisses. And now I have somebody else here and I just move into the next one, So I know that's a really open-ended question, but I hope whoever's asking it on Facebook can take away some of that. We have Margie says, question to Uma, Brittany, and Michael. Do you have any tool such as tarot, crystal, or something else when you're doing mediumship? I'll just say for me, no, mediumship is just straight mediumship. I don't use tools.
Same.
Same.
Nada.
You don't need anything. Yeah.
You do not need it. If it's true mediumship, it's coming from them. So what else do you need, right?
Exactly. I'm very glad that we're all on point about that. And then somebody asks, what is the difference between mediumship and trance mediumship?
So funny. I'm just about to teach that in an hour or two. So 2 hours. Yeah, that's funny. Trance mediumship. Okay, so mental mediumship is I'm conveying the information, sort of like a relay from the spirit world. And it's funny, actually, Uma, we met on a trance week, didn't we?
Yes, with Eileen, and it was the best week ever.
That was such a good one. Oh my God.
You brought through messages for me, and
I did.
She gave you that. I gotta tell you guys this was crazy. This was like my first time meeting Michael, because it was like the first day, and we came in the room, and Michael was sitting there with his eyes closed, and it was a circle around him. I'm like, oh crap! I'm like, what is this? Because Eileen can get crazy, and I'm like, what's about to go down? And then we're sitting in the circle, and then Eileen says that Michael's been in trance, and he's gonna bring through somebody for a loved one for somebody. Then this dude starts speaking about like one of my kin and describe, and I'm like, what the hell? And I could feel all the heat rushing through him. I'm like, oh my God, he's talking to me. Oh my God, he's talking to me. And he had his eyes closed the whole time. Now, you understand how difficult that is, because he wasn't getting feedback. He couldn't look at me and see me going like this or like that. He didn't see anything. And he had to go for like, what was it, 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Of just straight talking. It blew my mind. And I was like, oh. And then I had to do it, because we all had to do it after that. That was crazy. But go ahead.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So I love that. That's actually one of my favorite memories of working with trance, and you are a big part of that. So I love that. So mental mediumship is that relaying. So like I'm aware of it, and through impressions, I'm getting the information, I'm giving it to you from your loved one. Trance mediumship is, you could just say, a deeper awareness of that. So you are quieting your mind and becoming so passive that you're allowing the presence of whatever you're bringing through, whether that's a loved one or whether that is one of your guides and they're speaking, through you, so much so that their thoughts become your thoughts, and you are bringing through, their consciousness is passing through you to speak directly to the person in front of them or to the group or whatever. So it's about a deepening of a blending. It's just a much deeper blending, because it all falls under the umbrella of like mental mediumship, because trance and mental medium, like the kind that everyone's used to, is all mental mediumship, but it's just a matter of how deep are you going. So this moves us into trance and altered states. Funny, interesting fact is that Gordon Smith only developed, for those of you who don't know, he's hailed as like the UK's most accurate medium. He's insane. And I love him. And he developed as a trance medium. He didn't develop as a platform medium. The first time he got up on the platform was because the medium on the platform that day was not able to make it, and they said, "Hey, can you get up here and do this?" And he's like, "But I've never done this." And they're like, "Oh, but you've been sitting for 5 years, so you should be able to just blend. So just go." And he just did exactly what he did in trance. He let that blending happen, and then he just gave the message. And so one of the big things about mediumship that I want people to realize is that it's all about blending with the spirit person.
Yes.
It's all about deepening that blending. And as much as you can let yourself move out of it, the better your readings are going to be. And so that's why they always say trance can only enhance your mediumship, because in trance, you're having to go to an even further state of surrender, so that you are able to let this other awareness sort of pass through you. And it's a very, very passive thing. If you let your mind come in, then you're going to influence the situation. So hopefully that answers it. I know that someone's going to ask about, channeling being very similar, and it is very similar. Personally, I do make a distinction between the two. There really isn't one, but I personally do, just because I know that in channeling, it can often be, it could be anything, right? It can be your higher self, it can be an alien, it could be a ascended master, it could be all kinds of things. And me personally, I like things that are evidential, and so I tend to move more that direction with trance. So
I love that, because for me, when I describe trance, I say it's passive, and then mediumship, what we know about like doing private sittings, gatherings, or galleries or platform, it's active. And I think you answered that really well. And I got to tell you guys, because we all have similar backgrounds, how we started, I personally have a feeling we started with trance. Because I know for me, when I would massage, and maybe you can relate to this, Michael, and maybe Brittany too, like you just get in your zone, because it's repetitive. And then I would just I almost would fall asleep on my clients, because I would just get in that like lull, and I would just be free. And it was crazy. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Do I have like narcolepsy or something? Yeah. And that's why I train every year with trance. Colin Bates is my favorite minister to train with. And I'm doing his event online. He has an online class in July through the Journey Within Church. And this is my third time taking it, because I love Eileen too. It's just that, you got to tell me when you bring her to California, because going to Ardra Finlay is just a trip. And if she keeps coming to California, I'll just come there to do trance with her, because she's like one of the best.
She was supposed to do it this last June, not June. She was supposed to do it in April, but then COVID, and she's supposed to do it in July, but COVID. And so now, not until next year. But
yeah, that's the same thing with Colin, why he can't come this year is because of COVID. All right. Someone said, let's see. So we answered that. If someone, spirit or human, involved with a reading has endured some very dark experiences, do you ever see that? Does it stay with you, and how do you deal with it personally? Who wants to answer?
I'm so glad you asked this question. This is one of my favorite questions to answer, but I won't do it unless you guys want to go first.
Yeah,
okay.
Brittany's like,
I'm actually gonna go get a water, so you take it away.
Oh my God, love her. So can you read me the question one more time so my brain can go with it?
If someone, spirit or human, involved with a reading has endured some very dark experiences, do you ever feel or see that? Does it stay with you, and how do you deal with it personally?
Yeah, so firstly, I would say it does not stay with me. So when you're developing your mediumship, you learn how to touch an experience, but you don't hold and take on the experience. So when someone has had a challenging or traumatic experience in their life, you can be aware of that, but it doesn't have to be this thing that's like all encompassing and I'm crying and da, da, da. One of the things that Gordon taught me was it's your job to be the rock in the storm. And so it's not for us to take on that sort of thing. You touch it, sort of like a hot stove. You just touch it really quick, and then you don't burn yourself, right? But what happens for a lot of people, especially in their development, is that they tend to hold on to something because they feel it so strongly. And so another thing I want to add, and this is another Gordonism, is no one's a victim of spirit. No one. And so if you have something happening where it's bothering you later or that sort of thing, or you feel like they're coming home with you all the time and like I can't clear, that's because you're not taking responsibility of your own awareness. So it's super important for you to turn that bad boy off and to not be looking for it. Because if you're still aware of it, mediumship isn't your normal day-to-day awareness.
Right.
Mediumship is a separate space that you move into. And then when you go back, boop, now you're back to your normal human brain. But there is nothing from the spirit world that we have to fear. Zero things.
Thank you.
This is oftentimes where I run into conflict with other mediums and people, because some people do believe these things. And there is absolutely zero things that you need to fear from the spirit world. You have much more to be concerned about in the day-to-day life living here.
Right.
The spirit world is just love. Fear is just an experience that we have because of our living experience. Our ego says, oh no, I'm going to be annihilated. I'm scared. Let me do something about it. That's the living human condition, right? So then when we die and we go into the spirit world, we are just there in love. So if there's fearful teachings and things like that, please just toss them out, because, you know, developing mediumship is challenging enough when you're dealing with yourself. And that's ultimately what you have to do. Mm-hmm. So cut out the extra crap so that you don't have to go through those next, you know, phases. Just deal with this. This is hard enough, right? So anyway, I'm done. Go.
Brittany, answer that, because Brittany, don't you do like investigations and stuff?
I don't.
No, you don't do investigations. Okay.
No, not at all. And so, in fact, I try to separate myself from that as much as possible. I have an event that I have been doing annually, and this year I'm not actually going to do it, but it was called True American Ghost Stories, and all it was a charity event that where people came, and basically it was a ghost story concert. People just told their stories about ghosts, and just kind of a Halloween fun thing to raise money for adoption. But so I try to separate myself as much as possible from I guess what I would call ghosts. I don't know what you'd call it, but I don't do anything with investigations, with clearings, with any of that. And I learned from Gordon too, that there is nothing to fear. I mean, as soon as you started saying that, Michael, I went right back to my classes with him, and I remember, you know, him saying there's nothing to fear. It's all, you know. And another thing that you said that I absolutely loved was, which kind of really doesn't have anything to do with this. I'm good at getting off topic, but it's not our day-to-day. Mediumship and being in trance is not where we go day-to-day. So people are always like, you can't turn it on and off. Well, yeah, I can. It's off. Most of the time, it's off.
Yes.
You know, people are like, don't you get bugged all the time, blah, blah, blah.
No.
I actually have to get myself to an altered state in order to be able to read you. And I'm not in an altered state when I'm at the grocery store. Okay.
Exactly.
And Lord, I want to do this. I want to do like a hallelujah.
Preach, girl. Yeah.
It drives me crazy. You know, my least favorite thing is when someone says, well, didn't you see that coming?
Oh, Jesus.
Punch them in the face.
I mean, we're still human. We're still here to have like human experiences. And that's one thing people have to realize is, you know, that they love to make that joke. Well, you're a psychic, you should see that coming. Not when it applies to you. You still have to go through karma and lessons and everything else, like everybody else. You're not exempt because you have psychic intuition.
Right, exactly. Yep. We have to live this experience and be here physically. And I don't know about you, but I'm constantly like, even to myself, I mean, if I'm being honest, there are times where I'm like, how did I not see that coming? But it's just, it is what it is.
Like, especially with my dating life, like now it's good, but back then, like I was like, come on, guys, you could have helped out a little bit.
Are you a big believer in signs? Either I'm going to assume that
I am an astrologer, so yes.
Yeah. I do numerology, astrology,
no,
come on.
Not astrology, signs.
Signs. Oh yeah.
Signs, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was one thing when you mentioned dating, and I tell people this story constantly, but I kind of waited until I got a download of who it was supposed to be. And for 2 years, basically, I was single because, you know, he did not come. And so I think one of the interesting things to talk about there is the difference between signs in general and psychic download. Where do you guys stand with signs?
Well, I think for me, it's hard to read signs for yourself because you're going to want to read it the way you want to read it. Like for me, I always say before my current partner, if a guy showed up to me with a bouquet of red flags, I'd be like, oh yes, come on in. Come here.
Girl, me too. That was like a party.
It was so bad. Like everybody would be like, girl, he's not even working. I'm like, but he'll be fine. It's all right. We're riding this together. Girl, he don't got a car. I could drive. Like, listen, y'all don't know. So I think the reason when people, yeah, I'm speaking out of turn here, but I think like signs are real. But you, going back to what both of you said, you have to be in this mental health, spiritual health place of being able to decipher. And not a lot of people have that deciphering going on. Why? Because they're emotionally vested.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. And the other thing I would like to throw in there too is like, if everything is a sign, nothing's a sign. So if everything you're seeing is like, oh, I saw, XYZ happen, and then it must be a sign. I think James and I did a podcast on this exact topic. If you go to his podcast, you'll see it there. But it's I don't believe that everything is a sign. Not everything is like a spiritual thing that the universe is trying to tell you something. And I think it's important to make that distinction, because then you will miss the ones that are genuine, because everything else is going to be distracting you away from the actual thing that is something of help and importance. So
go ahead, Brittany.
I have a quick thing to share with you, only because I think it's super cool and I just can't stop thinking about it. But sign wise, so I got my download. He ended up being everything that was in the download except for the number 22. I said, do you have anything to do with the number 22? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, shit. Freaking out, right? I'm like, God, everything's great except for 22. Well, we go out on our first date and I get up to go to the bathroom and I come back and he's got the bill and he said, you're going to freak out. And he slid the bill over to me and it was $22.22.
Oh, wow.
That's the type of stuff that I'm talking about,
that's great.
Ask and you'll receive. The whole way there, in my mind, I was like, if he's the right one, show me 22, because I'm freaking out right now. And then boom. So ask and you shall receive.
I love that.
That's fun. I guess I'm awful because I'm just like, I'll just deal with the crap. I was like, it's okay. It can just be really terrible.
I've been through this before.
I was like, we'll learn something along the way, I'm sure.
Listen, I dated a pathological liar for 2.5 years.
I bet that helped you psychic.
Listen, listen. I think God knows crazy, and he just sends crazy my way, and he's like, well, this will toughen you up, if anything, Uma. This will.
Don't worry, honey. We're sharing the crazy, okay? I got you. So you don't have to bear it all on your own.
I know. It's like people look at me and they're like, what have you gone through in life? I'm like, a lot, and I'll write a book about it someday, because it is what it is. Somebody says, Brittany, do you remember the cherry mash? I think it's like an inside thing. The cherry.
I do. So, who is that from?
Michelle Maggart.
Okay, Michelle. So this is really cool. My assistant, we were going to another show in La Plata, Missouri. I have a thing with booking events in really tiny towns because there is there is nothing there. And so I try to bring this to smaller towns. Yes, my assistant, Adrian, and I were stopping at a gas station before this event, and she saw this cherry mash, and we were sitting there buying, our treats before we go in and do the event. And she bought one of those, and I'm like, yuck! Like, what is wrong? What? She's like, no, it's not for me. I don't know who it's for, but it's not for me. So I go back into the green room and I get ready and I'm by myself and she's checking people in, and this girl comes up. My assistant had taken that cherry mash and she put it right on the table. And she was like, whoever this is for, they're going to see this and know. And apparently this was this girl's loved one's favorite thing to eat. And she knew that if cherry mash came up, they would be there. And lo and behold, she comes in to sign in and my assistant was like, oh, that's for you. And I'm sure that girl thought, I can't believe this is insane. But there's another thing that's both a sign and a sign from spirit. And it's just God, it's a beautiful. I feel so blessed.
Can one of you define what CERT is? I don't remember. I remember evidence and
Oh.
tying it up.
That's me too. Look, that's exactly what I have. Evidence and that's all I got. So,
See, is it certifying? Evidence.
No.
Relative?
I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't learn CERT. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just heard about this like a couple months ago, and I was doing my spirit talks on with Travis. Do you guys know Travis James Sanders? Okay, yeah, he's somewhere in Ohio, I think. So yeah, he said something about CERT, and I was like, oh, what's that?
You just threw him our way because we're just out here in the boondocks, and you're just kind of like anything east of me, as they all know each other. They all know
you guys all know each other, right? Like y'all stick together.
Not so much.
Virginia, Ohio, Missouri, who cares?
I basically skip over all of the United States and go straight to the UK. It's just that's where all my friends are.
So characteristics, evidence, relaying the message, tying it up, which
Okay.
I don't use that. And that's not really how I go. I go evidence first. Characteristics are kind of a bonus, and they're going to come out in the way that I give you the evidence. You're going to be able to tell.
Can you define how you differentiate characteristics and evidence?
I know, right? Because I tend to think
like
that
how do you differentiate?
Characteristics to me is something physical, like how they look, how they talk, how they act. Evidence is birth dates, death dates, names of children, things that they just went through, hobbies, occupation. That's how I differentiate them.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, they differentiate it too. How do you is characteristics the same as evidence to you?
No, I thought they were, but I really love your description because somebody can present to me with darkish brown hair and it could really be black hair, so there could be like some weighing in there. But whereas with facts, the birthday was September 15th, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I like the way you described it because that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very different from me because for me, those kinds of things don't actually come until I've connected with the essence and the personality. So like anytime I connect with someone, I have to get their essence and their personality first. I have to describe who they are, and that actually draws them closer to me. Before I can get I won't even be aware of that kind of stuff. So that's really cool that you can get that.
That's what comes first for me. I'm like, I want facts. I think I have this I don't know what you would call it, but this desire or need, fetish to get the facts straight because I want to prove to them that I have the person. So I'm so caught up in death dates, birth dates, everything about that person's life. The essence comes next. It's evidence first, then it's kind of like I always describe it as an old 1980s computer. You know how everything has to download real slow? For me, that's how it starts. I get the evidence and then I begin to get characteristics. I begin to get features of how, what they look like. And then I get the messages.
That's really cool.
I don't get pictures almost ever. So I never know what the person looks like unless there's something that is like super clear, like maybe they were in a wheelchair or something. I never get, I mean, occasionally, but like, it's not, I don't depend on the clairvoyant aspect.
Yeah. Clairvoyance is big for me because I see everything. So I can say like, this is what their favorite pajamas, and I could describe it and everything, but it's interesting how we all work differently. But what is even cool, I hope you guys are paying attention. We each know our craft. Like I know for me, it's feeling. I always start with this person feels warm and giving, and I feel like a motherly presence. And like, I can go in with the feeling, and then the clairvoyance comes, and then the evidence comes like third for me. And that's just the way I've done it. So it's really cool that you guys all know your processes and you're able to speak, confidently from it. You were kind of psychic a little bit, Michael, because you were talking about trance, and then you said, I know somebody's going to ask about channeling, and somebody did, because she said, is trance medium similar to channeling? Is trance mediumship same as channeling? And we answered that because thanks to his amazing psychicness.
I'm not amazing, I promise.
Yeah, we did CERT. Brittany, did you get another date with the guy after 2222?
Yes, we've been together about 3 months.
Yay!
And he's absolutely perfect. He's exactly, I got a download about, I want to say 7 or 8 months ago of, they said his name was going to start with an M. He would have really distinct teeth, which I'm kind of a teeth person. So when I heard that, I'm like, oh, whoa. Wait, what? They said I would have to make a choice. You know, he wouldn't be fully available, and then he would be. And then they said our astrology signs wouldn't match, and I got real hung up on that because I put a lot of stock into, you know, how signs cohabitate and how they get along and all that. And when I found out he was a Cancer, I was like, oh God. Now
I love Cancers.
You love them?
I love them.
What
What's
are
your
you?
sign? Yeah, what's your sign?
I'm a Pisces with a
Oh, I knew it.
Oh, of course you would love Cancer.
Capricorn rising, and Taurus moon. So,
Oh, you like
Taurus
fancy
moon.
things, huh?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So yeah. So I put a lot of stock into astrology for a long time there, and they told me, they kept saying he's not going to fit. He's not going to fit. So don't freak out. And I got sign after sign after sign, you know, of you know, people that I would meet that shouldn't be together astrologically. Like they should not be able to be together. And that happened over and over again. And finally I'm like, okay, I'm open to it. And they even told me what month he would come in, what season and all that. And so all of it ended up happening. And that 22 was what
That was it. I do everything off of astrology. Like when I start working with people, I'm like, what's your sign? What's your moon sign? What's your rising sign? What's your North Node? You know, I'm like, you need to, don't waste my time here. What's your life path number? What's your destiny number? What's your soul number?
So
When I
Michael,
started working,
have you ever dated someone that isn't a match for you astrologically?
I am single, so I can tell you yes.
Brittany, I've been over a relationships. What do you think?
No, I you know, when it comes to dating, I always love looking at that. But even as an astrologer, like I don't use astrology very often as far as like for my own life. Especially like because I do orrery astrology, which is incredibly accurate. And I'm a traditional astrologer, which is a little bit different from modern astrology. Just some of the rules and things like that of house rulerships and things like that and signs and things like that.
Is that Vedic?
No, still Western astrology, but it's just the traditional version. Like, for example, in traditional astrology, Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, not Pluto. Like, we would never put Pluto or the outer planets as rulerships. But anyway, when it came to dating, yeah, I would look a lot at charts because it's fun for me. But I also realized any combination can work. It's just about communication. And being able to actually work through whatever it is that is coming up. So yeah, I definitely I secretly dream to meet a Scorpio because I love Scorpios. Like
You're so
everyone's like, oh, Scorpios. And
I know.
I eat it up. I'm like, give me that Scorpio energy any day. But
no,
anyway.
Scorpios are cool.
Yeah, but also like here's the other thing is like, a sign, if you just look at the sun sign, it's like trying to read a paragraph without with just reading the first word. So a sun sign is such a tiny part of the personality. So you have to look at everything. So now if you're saying that this is working out great for you, Brittany, you could probably look at the other parts of his chart and your chart and then see where these two things are actually working harmoniously.
Right.
So.
And wouldn't you say, like, Michael, for people to go more off of their moon signs when they're talking about relationships, like what her moon is in and what his moon is in?
I think it's all together. To break it into its individual parts is missing some of the things. So I think you have to look at everything all as a whole, where the planets even fall in the chart, because like you can have someone who's a Leo, but if he has his sun in the 8th house, he's not going to be that outgoing, you know, sort of whole quality. Are you a Leo, Uma?
No, I'm Cap Sun, Gemini Moon, and Sag Rising.
Okay. Why did I think you were a Leo? I thought
that's
you were
Sag Rising.
Oh, the Sag Rising. That's it. Exactly. Yeah. Because I was like, you're very, you know, out there and
crazy. Yeah, I like it. I own it.
Michael, I think you feel and seem like a Leo.
He really does.
Yeah.
I didn't think Pisces, but because of his ability, I know like Pisces fits, but I didn't know.
Are you emotional, Michael?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Like Capricorn rising though kind of puts a little thing up. But you know what I found to be very consistent astrologically is moons in Taurus. Moon in Taurus is almost always going to have mediumistic awareness. because in astrology, in traditional astrology, different planets, they're not equal through every single sign. So some planets really like to be in certain signs and that gives it strength, which is what we call dignity. So planets have dignity through different signs. For example, if a planet is in its own sign, let's say, as we used Mars and Scorpio, it gives it a lot of strength to do something, right? Whereas if it's in its opposite, like Libra, it becomes very, very weak. So we don't see a whole lot of the expression. So Moon in Taurus is in what we call exaltation. So it over exaggerates that planet, the moon. So it expresses itself as much as it can. And as we know, the moon rules intuition. It rules the subconscious. It's all that sort of thing. So I've actually found some of the best mediums, like Eileen Davies, Taurus moon, and a Pisces sun.
You guys are the same.
Yeah, they're the same. Gordon Higginson had Taurus moon. Glenn Edwards had Taurus moon.
Wow.
So many really amazing mediums. And just even in my students, I'll find out what their moon sign is, and they're my kind of, I don't want to say top students, but my really strong, naturally their students tend to be Taurus moon as well. So
that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. In fact, somebody said, oh, Jen, who's going to be our speaker in 2 weeks, she's a Taurus moon. Yay.
She knows what I'm talking about.
Adriana asks, I want to learn more about interpreting charts. What is a good resource for this? What would you recommend?
Yeah. So I tend to teach it in a different way, in that I think people should learn orrery astrology first before they should move to natal astrology, because in today's world, like, everyone talks about natal astrology, which is great, but with orrery astrology, it teaches you the rules of, and you spell orrery Horary, it teaches you the rules of prediction, and it also is very simple. So like, you can ask a question, and when you ask that question, we cast a chart based on when you ask the question, and then we get the answer from that. And these can be really simple things like, where did the cat go? It can be, where are my keys? I've literally found lost keys in the house from casting a chart. So orrery astrology is absolutely incredible. It's my favorite form of astrology because it's so specific and accurate. Like, I often get people like, am I going to get this job? Da, 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 da. And it's just like a quick answer the question sort of thing. Then once you have that under your belt, then move into personality, because if you can answer something accurately about something so mundane, you can then expand that, and now you can talk about something that's going to happen over the lifetime. Does that make sense? And so it teaches you the rules. So what I would recommend is
The Inner Sky.
This book. Hold on, I'll grab it for you.
I love that we have like all our stuff just right next to us, because I have a bunch of books behind here too. Just, oracle card decks and stuff.
It's called the Orrery textbook. It's probably backwards.
No, it looks good. John Frawley. I'm going to check that out too.
Incredible. I mean, incredible. I love him as an astrologer in general. And he's funny, he is witty, he is also will talk a lot of crap on modern astrologers. But that's okay. We'll just go with it. But he's right. That's the problem, He's right. Yeah. And that's why we can often, I'll get a little closer. John Frawley is his name.
I think you could be kind of like a little a-hole when you're really fantastic genius. It's like a right.
He definitely does that.
Well, listen, we can literally like chat all night because the vibes are so great here, but we are at the end of our time. So I want to ask you to just one quick, simple question for you guys to answer for everybody else. And everybody, thank you for hanging in there with us. What advice would you have give your younger self as a medium when you first started your development and your training? What advice now, after being a professional medium for so long, would you give yourself?
You go first.
Okay. I say it every chat, so I'll just repeat it again. For me, it would be take better care of myself, because my self-care game was not on point 11 years ago. I was so busy working that I wasn't eating right. I wasn't working out enough. And now I have a whole host of health issues because of it. So I would have tell my younger self, really take care of yourself.
One of the best things that I learned, there's actually two things. So first thing is, you are human. Give yourself the okay to be wrong. Okay. That was the hardest part for me, was feeling like with every hit that I took where I wasn't absolutely correct, my game lowered. You know, I felt just like maybe this isn't for me. So I give myself permission to be wrong. Okay. Yeah. And then the second thing would be, you should be able to, and I heard this from Janet No Havoc when I studied with her in New Jersey, you should be able to, at some point after studying this for a while, turn it on and off. I used to go through this long, drawn out meditation, stones. I had to have everything just right. And I realized, you know, after so many times of being rushed or whatever, oh, I forgot my labradorite, or oh, I, you know, didn't smudge or whatever. And I don't want you to feel like I'm telling you to, you know, have bad habits, but you really, truly should be able to turn it on and off, just like a muscle, just like you're able to get up and run, or you're able to sing. You should be able to click it in and click it off, and not feel like you have to go through a long process of getting ready and preparation and all that. You need to be able to get to a point where you can do that.
Good.
I love that. What about you, Michael?
For me, it would say, I would say the thing I wish I could have told that young man is to understand the power. Like, seek out those who are going to teach you. First of all, look at who you're learning from, right? Obviously you can't change what happened, and actually I wouldn't have changed what happened, but like what I wish I had at the very beginning was understanding the power and realizing that that is the backbone of your mediumistic development. If you don't understand that and you don't develop that understanding, you will, it's only going to inhibit you until you do, essentially. And then look for those teachers who are humble, who are grounded in their own awareness. Because what I find is the teachers who really truly get it and who are true, genuinely spiritual people don't need to tell you that. They don't need to show it. They don't need to be, you know, because they're confident in what they're already doing. So look for those who you want to learn from, or those who are grounded in their spirituality and grounded in themselves. Because there's so many egos out there. It's incredible. And a lot of people, and then also I'd say thirdly is, you know, follow the evidence when it comes to that, because I think that was super important for me, is following the evidence. And then last, I guess I would say, is what Eileen says, what a good way to end it is, your trust is the gift you give the other world.
Oh,
I love that.
Your trust is the gift you give the other world. So learning to rely on them and realize that this isn't coming from you, it's coming from them. So you have to trust your connection to them. So that's what I
just like, she floors me. Like, you make me want to cry every time you quote Eileen.
I know.
She's so poetic. She's just so poetic.
I know.
Brittany and Michael, you guys teach like I do. Can you maybe tell us about some of the events you guys have coming up, or drop some links for us? I just dropped mine. I start my mediumship mentorship program in July. And so from July to December, it's in person in Northern Virginia. And then from January to June next year, it's online. So if you just want to know about it, it's a 6-month program. I just dropped the link there, and I'm doing it with my working partner, Carlos the medium in Northern Virginia. What about you guys?
So I do a 4-hour workshop every 6 months. It's a psychic workshop, and then it's actually a 5-hour workshop. And then I do a mediumship workshop. And in order to take the mediumship class, you have to take the psychic class as a prereq. So you kind of have to match them up so that you can get them at the right time. But I did just finish up the psychic class, so I have the mediumship coming up in August. So if you're one of my students and you're on here that's taken the psychic class, you can now sign up for that in August. I do something called the Energy Enlightenment Tour. I travel with 2 other women, Kelly Howe, who's an EFT specialist, and Chantel Renee, who is author of Aligning with the Divine and a licensed hypnotist. And we do an all-day event where we each teach a couple different classes. And if you're able to catch one of those, you know, our tickets are $100 for those, $111, I think. And so they're beyond affordable, considering some of us have paid upwards of $1,000, $2,000.
$3,000 to $5,000. I think
and
I've spent $50,000 in.
And that doesn't that doesn't include what it costs to travel and rent a car and all of that. And so people are always asking me, why is it so expensive to see you? And I'm like, let me break this down for you. Let me show you what I've done.
Let me show you my tuition.
And then you tell me if that other psychic that charges $20 is, but anyway,
for free.
I digress. You can find all of my event information on my Facebook page, which is just my name, Britney with 1 T, N-E-Y Buckwalter. Or you can go to themissourimedium.com. I also have a blog called mymomthemedium.com where a lot of these stories are shared.
And I'm putting it in the missourimedium.com. And if you guys are here on Zoom and you registered, you're getting an email from me and it has Brittany's information on there as well as Michael's. But Michael, do you want to share anything coming up with?
Sure. So I teach weekly classes because I'm a strong believer in like consistency over time. That's really what is the strong development. Obviously right now, everything is not in person. So everything for me is online. So I teach Sundays, mental mediumship, 7 to 9. Obviously all this is Pacific time. That's $25. Tuesday nights I teach trance, though you have to have some experience with mediumship before coming to that class, also $25. And they're all 2-hour classes, except for Thursday nights, which is also a mental mediumship class, which is an hour and a half, and it's $20. So if you want to try it out there. Let me think if there's anything else. No, that's all I really have going on right now. I do mentorship. So my mentorships are not long programs. They're one-on-one mentoring. And so I will do them in 4-week blocks, and that's what you can get is 4 weeks blocks at a time. That way there's more flexibility. And then also we're really just focusing on what is keeping you from going further and how can we get you past those little blocks so that you can expand your awareness, expand your mediumship. All that information is on my website, mediummichaelmayo.com. And I think that's it. If you're interested in any of that, you can either RSVP through the website, or you can email me if you're interested in the mentorship program. Just shoot me an email and say, hey, I'm interested in the mentorship program, and then I'll send you the information.
And you guys, like me, you're still taking clients, right?
Yeah,
I am. I have a current pause because I'm just getting over this respiratory thing, but
That's good enough. They can get like on your waiting list.
Yeah. You'll be probably like number 15, 16. I don't know right now, but yes,
somewhere on there.
It'll eventually happen. Yeah.
And I do recommend everybody who's watching that you get some readings from, because it's like, it was said earlier, I don't remember if Brittany or Michael said it, there are a lot of fake people out there that just have no substance. They don't know what they're doing. They're not trained. They just are kind of pulling stuff out. Now, there is such a thing as a natural medium. That's true. But you still need training, because I'm one of those natural mediums. I've been doing this since I was like a kid. But that doesn't give me an excuse to just do it. Like, you have to have some training. So these guys, I vouch for them. I think if you book them for a reading, you're going to have an amazing experience. So please book them and see what it's like and experience it for yourself. So I want to thank you guys for coming. I'm going to stop recording because I will be sending this to you guys too, the recordings that you guys can have. And Facebook, we're going to say goodbye to Facebook. So if you guys can just head on out, I'm going to ask Michael and Brittany just to hang back for a couple seconds.
Sure.
So thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
And then I'm looking at, your assistant was on Facebook, Michael. She said, not just his stalker.
My assistant was on there.
Yeah, she said, this, because she was commenting a lot, which was awesome. It was in.
Good.
It was the conversation.
Megan.
And then